Hello everybody, welcome back. Today for a change, I'm not going to show everybody a real-time game, but a special opening variation from the Italian game, specifically the two knights defense in the Italian game. So I'm going to show everybody a side variation or sub variation, depending on how you call it. So this is a sub variation from the two knights defense that can actually lead to a quick checkmate of white. That is if white did not play the right moves, right? Which I think a lot of strong players, including myself, we have fallen into this mating trap, right? So now to start things off, this is knight f6, black's third move, right? So this is the starting position of the two knights defense, and you would always see white playing this knight g5 in most circumstances. Knight g5 is the most powerful approach. There are also other approaches like d3, knight c3, but those things are not as direct as knight g5 because in this situation, the only move for black is d5, right? So temporarily, you have to sacrifice the d pawn, right, in order to launch a counterattack on the white bishop. Okay, so this is how it goes, right? So take, right, he takes d5, and now you got to think about should you retake d5 or should you move the knight on c6 to some other square, right? So first of all, I'm going to show everybody knight takes d5, right? This is not a good approach because there is this sacrifice here. Knight takes f7, right, take, and the queen check. And the king has to move forward, right, diagonally forward to e6. And now there's this knight c3, right? So now there's this triple attack on the knight on d5, and the only way is actually to defend it like this. Very ugly looking move, knight cb4, okay? And yeah, in this situation, the white bishop can retreat, and then black can defend the knight on d5. And in this situation, white is actually slightly better. White is not terrifically better, but it's basically a doable position. So this is some way for black to play, right, like this, okay, castle. Okay, again, this is very, very complicated. And then, this very engine-like move, who would see this king d7, right? This is not what a human would play, right? Okay, so this is not ideal, right? This is playable, but this is not ideal. The ideal move is knight a5, right? Okay, knight a5. This is the main line, right? The main two knights defense. So the modern approach, I want to show everybody the modern approach, right? We have two approaches, knight d4, and there's this very powerful b5, right? b5 exclamation mark, right? Knight d4, I wouldn't really give it an exclamation mark, maybe an exclamation plus question mark. I think it's just interesting, all right? Okay, interesting in what sense? Interesting in the sense that if white does not know his variation, does not know the best continuation, he will get checkmated for sure, right? So this is how it goes. So, okay, so for any white player, okay, let me just rotate the board, okay? This is just from white's perspective, okay? So any player with some elementary of chess, okay, I think he doesn't know the engine line, right? He will push the d pawn to d6. Why? Because that opens up the attack on f7. This is extremely logical. And black actually will capture this pawn on d6. I mean, okay, so at first sight, this looks like this is just a blunder. Looks like this is a blunder for black. However, let's just watch what happens after knight takes f7, right? I mean, queen takes d6 just look like a horrible blunder. Okay, but however, it's not queen takes d6 that is strong. It is the follow-up move of queen to c6. And look at what is happening. Black is allowing white to take his rook on h8. And what happens? So you're thinking, what happens after I take the rook on h8? Am I not just simply up a rook? No, you are not, because the g2 pawn is on pre. So what happens after this? Okay. Now the g2 pawn is gone. And seriously, what can you do, right? So there's only one move, that is rook f1. And there's this rook to g4. And look at what's happening. What's happening to white? There is simply no way for him to protect the queen. Okay, apart from maybe this f3. And then there's this, I think, yeah, either knight takes f3 or stockfish's bishop take f3. And there's just no way you can defend the queen. It's pretty much, I mean, white is pretty much dead. So that's the thing I'm talking about, right? Okay, so what happens if white chooses to defend with d3? The same thing happens, right? No matter what happens, the same thing happens. Let me just illustrate, okay? Okay, in this situation, yeah, this knight takes f3 is much stronger. Okay, so what happens if you don't take the bishop? Okay, as Stockfish told you to. What happens? Queen d2, right? You're thinking, oh, okay, I can escape with an exchange of queens, but no, all right. Queen g1, checkmate. All right. Let me just replay this. Queen g1, checkmate. Wow, wow, this is amazing, right? Amazing, right? This is unbelievable stuff. So, in just 12 moves, right? Like that, in just 12 moves, White got himself checkmated. Wow, right. So you literally you have to know the continuation, okay? So by the way, like that, okay? d6 is a blunder, okay, by white, even though it looks like it's a strong move. And queen takes d6, even though it looks like a blunder, it is a move that is worth at least 2 exclamation marks, all right? Now, provided that black can find this queen c6, which is not difficult to find, by the way. So the right approach here, okay, let me just turn off the engine. All right. It's not knight takes f7, all right? The right approach here is, okay, now let me just not go for d6, okay? I think d6 is bad, right? Now I just want everybody to think about a move, right? Okay, this is white's turn, okay? All right, time's up, right? So according to the engine, our Stockfish, right, d6 is not a move, right? The right move is c3, right? And what happens? What is the best approach? Okay, the best approach is on the board, right? The best approach is a very non-intuitive b5. Okay, let me just rotate the board, right? That is worth an exclamation mark on its own. So as black, what happens if you saw your player, your opponent, playing c3 and not d6? You got to follow it up with the computer-esque b5. Wow. So b5 was what I talked about, right? In this situation, you can play b5 straight away. So this is a delayed, in this situation, yeah, b5 is still, yeah, on the horizon, but it's just simply delayed. Right, now, okay, let's just go back, right? So the right move here is simply b5, yeah. And now I have to go back. I think going back to the f1 square is the best approach. All right, and now I can take, right? Take because there is an attack on the knight on g5. And then take, okay? So the computer line is something like this, okay? Now in this situation, well, you got to make a decision, right? Should you move the king or should you defend it with the bishop? So the right approach is to move the king. Yeah, so all these moves you got to know, right? So temporarily, white is actually ahead, and there's always a lot of things that can happen, right, if you're not really careful, right? So bishop b7, you got to know this as well. And this is a very computer-esque, okay? I don't think a human would actually play queen f3, yeah. I think that's just too strange to be. I think a human will play like taking on this, okay? However, if you do that, if you saw your opponent do that, this is literally a mate-in-4 because of the 3-point attack, a 3-pronged attack on g2. And okay, now look at what's going to happen, right? If like this, okay? And this is simply a mate-in-1, right? Yeah. Yeah, I really can't think of anything, right? This is the attack is just way too strong, right? So you cannot simply just capture on e5, right? That's extremely cavalier. So what happens if you play this d3? The same idea happens. Same idea, right? Knight f4. Same idea. And what happens if you do this? Knight c3. Same idea. So you got to know this. Queen f3. And in this situation, black will defend the bishop on b7. And now you can take on e5. So everybody, you can see how complicated this is, and this computer as sacrifice on e3, right? Now look at what happened if you take, right? This is just a main one. So you got to defend it, and another way is to play it here on g3. But in this situation, black is simply better, right? Because of knight c2. Right. Well, so everybody can see that, yeah. So you have to move your queen to h3. And then in this situation, we will exchange the queens with an additional wing of a white pawn. Something of this sort, yeah. And surprisingly, the engine still thinks that white is slightly better by 1 point, yeah. But this is already a very, very complicated game, right? Yeah. And now there's some room for maneuver. I think knight c3 is okay, yeah. And of course, like moving the bishop back, that's Stockfisher's move. Yeah, it's very, very non-intuitive. Okay, so in this situation, it's pretty much balanced, right? In this situation, in this position. But I think the critical move, of course, is after this bishop b7, which is really very strong. I think it deserves an exclamation mark, right? Right, and then your queen f3 is also an exclamation mark, right? How often do you see such a move, right? Putting your own queen in a line of discovered attack. Wow, how often do you see that, right? Yeah, and then rook b8. Yeah, it's very strong as well. It simply supports the foundation of the attack, right? Taking it, and this move itself, I would give it an exclamation mark. Yeah. D takes e5, right? Because what happens if, say, black simply take back, right, on e5, right? In this situation, there's simply another sack here. Okay, what happens if I do this? Okay, take it. What happens? Right, rook d1. Rook d1, yeah. There's just no way for black to defend. Yeah, and now this is a rook for two minor pieces. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going through this variation because this is too obvious. Yeah, so this d4 is worth an exclamation mark in that case. After if black chooses to take on e5, right? d4, right? Remember d4, extremely strong. So you have to go back to f6, exchange it. And I think in this situation, white is simply better. Yeah, this is very, very easy to play, okay? And now in this situation, this knight e3, right? We're testing, white's knowledge. Very, very strong, okay? This is wrong, all right, of course. And some of you may be asking, right, what if, okay, after this move here, okay, what if I move the knight here? A knight knight c2, right? There's this checkmate in 1, right? That's why you see all these moves, right? All these moves, if they're not exclamation mark moves, they are extremely strong moves, right? Okay, so I hope everybody can see this. Okay, knight c2, a mate in 1, yeah. So let's just go through the variation again. Okay, of course you don't play that, right? That's just a mate in 1, right? Okay, I'm not going through that, right? Okay, queen takes g2, right? The most circumspect, right? And then d4, okay, d4, exclamation mark, yeah. Bishop e7, yeah. And I guess I will stop here, okay? I guess I will stop here. So this is a point that there will be a lot of room for creativity, for innovation. White is, of course, slightly better, but there's always a possibility for white to go wrong, right? There's always some counterplay because black, after all, black has the semi-open b file, right? There's always some chance to counter-attack with c5. And then there's also h5, h4 possibilities. So it's not easy at all, right? Not easy at all, okay? So let me just go through the entire sequence of events for everybody, right? Okay? And not this, all right? In this situation, okay, as white plays c4, all right? As I said earlier, all right? Okay? Take, right? Yeah. So this is the exchange of knights in the center, right? And on the king side, of course, okay? And now takes it. Don't take the pawn on e5 right now, okay? Just don't take it, all right? Okay, I just wanted to say why don't take it. What happens after this, all right? This is just horrible, okay? You just lose the advantage as white, You simply lose the advantage after the queen exchange. All right, don't take it. Okay, don't take it. All right. As long as you are playing as white, don't do a premature taking of the e5 pawn. All right, take it. Take the side pawn. Right, the b5 pawn is perfectly fine. Okay, now castle. Okay, b7. Well, queen f3 like that. And now you take it, right? After rook b8. Now you take the pawn on e5, right? And now, yeah, not that, of course. Queen h3, take on g2, queen takes, knight takes d4. Yeah, d4, bishop e7, right? So this is how you should be memorizing it, right? To avoid any nasty surprises. Okay, now some of you may be asking, what happens if I don't play Stockfish's castling? Right, what happens? Yeah, what happens if I simply put my bishop back? Okay. Yeah, so there is this e takes d4. And so Stockfish will recommend h4. Okay. That is fine. That is fine. Yeah, so in this situation, I don't think a human would move the queen to c6, self-painting. But I think a human would play something like bishop b7. Right? That's perfectly understandable. And then you move it up here. This is also a little bit non-intuitive, but this is possible because the knight on d5 has no other square to go. All right. And queen to e6 is, yeah, I think this is what a human would play, all right? This is understandable. Right. So in this situation, I would say that black is much better developed, right? Yeah. So, you know, like white's queenside pieces, how are you going to place them? It's simply not easy at all. Not easy at all, right? Yeah. Okay, so I think in this situation, castling is simply the best, right? After taking on b5 with check, right? The kingside castling seriously is the best move, right? Okay. All right, so I hope everybody enjoyed this game, and right, let me just play the variation right all the way to the end. All right, all the way to the end. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. So here is where I will stop. All right. Okay, I hope everybody enjoyed watching this clip and improve yourself, increase your opening knowledge of the two knights defense, all right? So this is the two knights defense, knight d4 sub variation on the fifth move, right? So when you write it down, it's two knights defense, 5 triple dot, knight d4. And you can put an exclamation mark or an exclamation mark and a question mark after it, right? For me, I would choose the latter option. I think it's a very interesting, but it's not stunning, all right? So, okay, I hope everybody enjoyed this clip, right? Do watch it, right? Do give me a like if you find this thing useful. And I will see everybody in the next recording.